Welcome to another episode of the Activate CX podcast, where we demystify and clarify the direction of CX and the contact center. I'm Frank Rogers, your host, and I help brands grow with better CX, AI, and self-service. Today, we are talking to special guest Eric Smith at RingCentral as we answer the question, is RingCentral's AI ready for prime time? Well, is it? Let's see. Let's go. In today's episode, we go more than a few layers deep into RingCentral to uncover how they are tackling the subject of self-service and AI. Now, self-service doesn't sit alone in a silo. I believe it needs to be a collaborative movement with human and other digital channels. It needs to be a unified experience across touch points, no doubt, and thus it is not easy. It's obviously completely doable, but to get the outcomes you want, which is getting and keeping customers, it takes multiple technologies, smart journey strategy, and working across the business silos. So today we peel back the curtain on self-service and AI, in particular at RingCentral. And to do so, we bring in the AI leader at RingCentral, the tip of the spear, Eric Smith.
Hey, Frank. Thanks for having me today. Great to be here.
Great. It's great to have you here, and there's lots to cover, to be sure. And so let's jump right into it. And I want to dig into approaching self-service, and more importantly, just talk about one of my very favorite subjects, and obviously a big focus of our team here at Arroyo 360. It is literally part of every client conversation. You're in some of those. It provides some of the very highest ROI for businesses. And it also, interestingly enough, introduces tons of organizational questions and some prickly pear topics that require a bit of maturity to address. Eric, you lead the charge on these subjects, very important subjects at your company. Peel back the curtain on how you view and address self-service and AI, in particular at RingCentral.
Yeah, certainly. So I think RingCentral probably has an interesting take on this. And it really began with redefining the customer journey. I think historically contact centers have thought about the customer journey. The moment a customer picks up the phone and calls us, that's when the clock would start. However, over the last, call it 24 months, we've really moved that timeline back. And we want to start the clock the second the customer has a question pop into their head. Right? It could be, where is my order? It could be, what time is the store open to? Who won the ball game last night? Whatever that case is, right? We want to start solving with that information right then and there. And that extends all the way to what's happening on the website, what's happening in the Google search. And what we've learned is the better we control those upstream activities, the bigger the impact to the contact center in doing things like reducing call volume, even just having happier customers who call in because they're not frustrated. Those qualitative benefits are, just incredibly both hard to account for, but also the benefit to fixing that exponential. And so we've developed a multi-stage solution at RingCentral that really allows the customer, as they go through that journey, to keep feeding them additional information to get them to their ultimate goal. And it's been very successful so far.
That's great. I think that journey, you've mentioned that a couple of times, is so critical to unpack. When it comes to customer journey, we have a process within our company at Arroyo 360. It is actually called the Activate CX framework, and it works to kind of get to the context of the story. And we found, and you may have seen this, most people turn to a journey mapping tool or process, and we've actually taken a different approach, doing more of a story, doing more of a journey story, because we feel it is more verbose and easier for people to articulate. And even though like the visualization and the cool lines and flow that you see from a journey map may be inspirational, it's a lot of times not very actionable. And so we really found that journey is at the core of everything. How you define journey can not only be a process of identifying it, but also a means of uniting the company and uniting people's vision of it. And so the more that they can speak to it, the more that we can define what an on-site experience looks like at a touch point, and then what a back office experience looks like in terms of the mechanics of plugging it together.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe to add on top of that, I think one of the biggest evolutions that we've seen is that call centers and marketing teams have to work closer together than ever. We're
Mm,
starting to infringe on their world, hopefully help their world a little bit. But as the customer, again, going back to the example of them having a question, right? What are they going to do? They're going to pull out their phone and look for the answer. Some type
mm,
of Google search that's going to give them some information. Like, how can we make that information perfectly accurate? Or if they require additional steps, how do we drive them directly to the point in our website or domain where that the rest of that long form content lives? And then the biggest piece, as you alluded to in the beginning, is then how do we intelligently deploy the AI to clean up, right? Let's say the customer hasn't been able to self-serve. How do we then bring in the AI intelligently in a very symbiotic way to the rest of the journey that's contextual so that we can answer those final questions and again, get the customer living the life or getting them back to living their life, which is what they're hoping to do.
mhm.
And so it's been interesting and it's certainly expanded the conversation and the number of people within a company that we're talking to. We're not just solving for phone lines anymore.
And so for you, as you lead the CX practice and in particular AI and self-service with inside of Ring Central, what are the trends that you're seeing, maybe cross industry? If you want to call out a specific industry, you can, but is there any specific trend that you're seeing that is the core component of the conversations that you're having?
So we've really now defined our AI strategy across 5 different pillars. And I think it's important, one, for people to understand that AI means a lot today, right? It's not just a cure-all or a single solution. The biggest one, especially for contact centers, is conversational AI, and I think that will continue to be, the biggest player. Although that's taken a big step forward this year with the advent of Chat GPT and that really going mainstream. I think
Mhm.
more people are aware of AI than ever before, but really it's just an enhancement to previous tools that were already in place. And the solutions that we offer are starting to think about, okay, how do we start to include some of this new functionality and technology into it to continue improving the experience, but also keeping some guardrails in place because this is a public facing thing and there's an associated risk with that.
Mm.
The second kind of part 1B is process automation. So we're not just answering FAQs, right? This is really now complex capability for the AI to do things like schedule and reschedule appointments, update, upsell orders, potentially gather all kinds of information to increase conversion. So really a multi-phased conversation that the AI is capable of having. The third big one, and this is probably the biggest growth outside of Chat GPT this year, has been Agent Assist AI. So many of you have probably heard of this or maybe seen some stuff at a trade show, but by far our biggest growing bucket of AI. How do we empower the agents to have the necessary tools to serve the customer as the conversation is unfolding? Whether that be dynamic scripting, pulling information from a knowledge base that's contextual, but again, just equipping them to have a robust conversation. And then it moves into things like AI routing and AI analytics. And how do we have that some of that great machine learning to come in and tell us what's working, what's not working, and that's both for our agent teams as well as the AI itself. So really, the machines teaching the machines, which is I think what we've all been waiting for.
So this is when you talk about your pillars, this is fundamentally like a framework that you've created with inside of Ring Central to categorize various different user stories and create maybe a path to the product that's going to solve that the best.
Yeah, I think because AI has become such a ubiquitous term, a big part of our job here at RingCentral is just helping to educate our customers and prospective customers. There's a lot of confusion. There's a ton of noise. I think many of us are waking up to 100 emails a day, marketing emails saying, "Hey, come buy our AI," and it's hard to sort out what's real and what's vaporware.
Mm,
And that framework really allows us to break down what a customer's current objectives are for the year and say, okay, now we can start to prioritize, maybe here's your first phase of investment, and then let's plan to grow over the next 2 to 3 years. I think that's one reason people look at RingCentral is we're not a one-stop shop. We really have a full portfolio of products, even if it's not something that makes sense now, something that your company can evolve into in the future.
Mm. That makes sense. I mean, obviously there's strategy and there's tactics. And so what you're really talking about is making sure that you have the proper strategies so that there is a level of depth and there is some longevity in the relationship period, right? That we know that you can continue to take people down the path of, driving business sustainability and servicing clients as needs change. But ultimately there's got to be something like right now that's a problem that you're looking to solve, and maybe the next 2 or 3 steps.
Yeah, 100%. I think it also too, we have to recognize one, the better we understand our customers' business, the better we can serve them. So that's always step one. What are you trying to accomplish? What are the pain points in getting you to that ultimate goal? That's always where we start in every call. I think the other thing too that maybe is underestimated is even if the contact center or team that we're working with gets excited about AI, there's still a whole host of hurdles they have to clear to bring something like this on board, from legal and security. And so biting off too much up front can make it impossible to get that across. So by solving for that top objective that's going to resonate most resoundingly within an organization, that's why those objectives are so critical.
So maybe that's a good segue. And we kind of like talk about the challenge really of implementing AI. And while the benefits of AI in contact centers are appealing, so people are leaning into it heavily, there are undoubtedly challenges associated with its implementation. It's not easy, even if you select the right technology, and maybe the concerns are well founded overall around AI. There's a lot of noise on the subject and a fair amount of FUD, to be sure. As you talk about how RingCentral addresses these challenges head on, data privacy, security concerns, integrating with other systems, what is RingCentral doing different? What is the point of view that you have around these, and maybe some insights into how you're overcoming these obstacles?
Certainly, education is critical. Helping people understand what the technology can do, what it is, what it isn't. It's certainly not a push play, and it's just going to start to work. I think we've all had bad experiences calling into an IVR, and we're just running around in circles trying to explain ourselves with no mechanism to actually speak to somebody and no ability for the AI to solve our problem. I think that's a sort of worst case scenario, because instead of accomplishing a happier customer and a cheaper way of doing business, we've done the opposite. I was unfortunately just at a conference at Frost Sullivan listening to a guy talk about a multi-$100,000 investment in AI. And once they had it implemented, it had actually doubled their call center volume because it was such a poor implementation. And this poor guy, who knows if they'll ever bark up the AI tree again, just because of how much PTSD that they have. But I think one thing with RingCentral, we've got some teams here that have been working in this space for quite some time. We've learned through trial and error. We can bring those best practices to bear. And so you're really selecting a partner that can share that experience to make sure that when you do push play, everything is working as it should be, and you can start seeing real time to value quickly. I'll give you just a quick example. I mean, even the way that you train your IVR bot, when a customer starts saying agent or speak to somebody, admittedly, Frank, I'm the worst IVR customer maybe in history. I am that jerk that starts pushing 0 or just saying operator or speak to somebody that then misroutes me. So again, forgive me if I've been your customer. But even thoughtfully programming the AI in that moment to say, hey, Eric, we understand that you want to speak to somebody. Please tell us X, Y, or Z so that we can then route that call accordingly, right? If you do that, the customer feels heard. They know they're going to get to somebody, but you're still qualifying them to ensure that you transfer to the right team or person. And in the aggregate, those correctly transferred calls could equal hundreds of thousands of dollars in cost savings, and you've still created a good customer experience. That sounds like a simple thing. You'd be surprised how many companies get that wrong. And that's what we look for, is what are those little touches that make this work really well?
So it sounds like you're bringing some real world experience to the table when you're helping to scope out what that go-to-market solution looks like.
Yeah, 100%. And then I think maybe to go back to your question just around, what are some of those other challenges? I think certainly building an internal business case, it can take on two paths. One, you have companies that are all in, they've seen the Chat GPT demo. Hey, great, go do this. Here's the funds. We love those customers. Don't get me wrong. Please
Let's
call us.
go.
That's right. Off to the races. Absolutely. But I'd say more often than not, though, people are dipping a toe in the water and they're cautious. We want to educate them. We want to provide those great business cases as to what this can do for them. We do some things like market trials to prove out some of the data points sometimes. But the better we can build that partnership and help them then evangelize internally at their own company, I think the more successful we are in the partnership.
One of the things that we see in conversations around AI in particular is obviously, part of the talk track that goes with it is the displacement of people on the contact center. And that can be reapportionment or reassignment within inside the business, but regardless, it has that connotation. And perfectly honest, many of the contact center leaders that we work with are not too excited about that particular element of it. The group of people that they work with has become a family, and the thought of downsizing that family, as much as it may be for the betterment sometimes of the overall organization from a cost perspective and a sustainability perspective, is a challenge. And obviously AI doesn't have to mean that. How do you approach that, as you're talking about the impact of the customer experience? That's one thing, but then what are some of the business impacts, and how are people receptive to some of those various different points or optional points that they have in terms of course correction?
Yeah. So first, I want to be mindful that I'm not underplaying that this is disruptive technology. I think if you look back in history, the printing press, the cotton gin, right? Like all of those things have created seismic shifts in the labor force. And
Yes.
AI, I think, will eventually do that. I think in the short term, I think everybody doesn't have to be overly concerned that this is just going to wipe out the team immediately. But I don't want to be naive and say that changes aren't coming. I think the lens that we try to look through this in is, one, how do we make your agents as capable as possible, right? Like, how do we really make them effective? That's step one. We've got plenty of tools to do that. I think the second step is thinking about autonomous interaction versus semi-autonomous interactions, and helping companies understand that if we can take care of some of the mundane, even if it's just asking some qualifying questions before we transfer to an agent, the number of customers that we can serve with our agent team goes up, hold times come down. I mean, there's so much slack in the system that AI can really start to take out that even if you don't cut your agent team down at all, the ROI can still be substantial, right?
Indeed.
Additionally, we're still seeing the problems of high agent attrition. It's a thankless job, right? Being a contact center agent is a very, very challenging job. And if we can help them have a better experience, again, the P&L really starts to see some fantastic uptick, both top line and bottom line. And depending on what the company's objective is, we want to help them go in that direction. If they feel they need to have some reduction, okay, how do we do that thoughtfully? If they don't, but they still want improvement, okay, same approach. How do we do this very thoughtfully? And to everybody out there that's maybe worried about AI taking their jobs, I mean, I think that's a common feeling amongst all segments of the population. You're not alone. I have those thoughts from time to time. I think maybe I'm hoping that once the AI does take over, they'll have some leniency on me because I helped them do it. I'm not sure, but I can. So
It definitely sounds like a 12-step program, and certainly we're in a safe space as we talk about this, but it is a challenge that is currently at our feet. It's very real, and you can see the consternation that it's creating, but I believe it is going to give rise to some creativity that puts people in a better place and puts people in a place to win. You mentioned Agent Assist and a whole host of other tools that provide a better experience that allows that attrition rate to fall, right? Churn, whether it's people inside the organization or customers, is an absolute business killer. So I think there's a lot that we can do there for the organization. We've been talking about digital and AI, and they have a tendency to be things that are digital channels, but digital channels don't have to necessarily mean that there aren't humans involved. And so the importance really of this unified experience that we talk about, whether it's customers reaching out via chatbots or social media or email or on the phone, is critical for businesses. And in the US in particular, we're starting to actually adopt international communication tools like WhatsApp. I was doing a little bit of a study on this, and actually the United States has become the #1 user base for WhatsApp. That's a big development. And yet it's poorly represented as an available contact center channel in the United States. The same thing is really true for social listening. So when it comes to RingCentral, how does RingCentral work to help businesses overcome these channel silos and deliver a connected customer journey?
Frank, I'm so glad you asked. I've been trumpeting this effort now for a decade. And my background comes from digital and social media. I then switched over into once AI really started infringing on our territory. Now it's kind of one big happy family. Uh, there's so much opportunity for companies to connect with their customer base and prospective customer base on the channel where each of those customers feels most comfortable, right? Like if you pick up the phone and call, like, okay, I want to talk on the phone, but most of us don't do that, right? Most of us either send a text message, send an Instagram DM, a tweet, like whatever the case is, right? And if a customer is reaching out to you on that channel, they made that choice. Why steer them clear? Why not just have a system that's set up to handle that, do it effectively, and be done with it? Like we've seen every study that's come out has shown huge increases in customer satisfaction from allowing customers to choose their channel of choice. Like that should be common knowledge now. You bring up a really interesting one, and I think we can go a little bit further on WhatsApp. Like at the end of the day, we are a huge melting pot as a country. We have folks come from all over the world. And the #1 app that they use to communicate with their friends and family back home is WhatsApp, right? And if that's where they live, like just let them live there. Like just have an easy way for them to communicate with you on WhatsApp. You'll have a customer for life. One of my best friends, quick personal story, is from Mexico City. We went to grad school together, but he lives here now in Dallas, Texas. He has an American phone plan. We communicate exclusively on WhatsApp, right? That's where he lives. That's what he does. That's where he likes to do business. Like just make it easy for him. He's an affluent individual. If you want to do business, have WhatsApp readily available.
His scope is international, right? So like he doesn't want to go to one app for his international friends that are off continent, and he doesn't want to have a different app for the people that he's working with here in the US. He wants to have like a single pane of glass. I mean, that's what we're all really working for. And if a person has chosen that particular tool or that particular medium to communicate across the board, we have to meet people there.
Yeah, you said it very succinctly. Absolutely. And it's still early enough in the game that if you're out there thinking about it, this can be a great competitive differentiator. I mean, that is such an easy win for you as a company. I'd say the other big one, if you're not familiar, is Apple Messaging for Business. It used to be called Apple Business Chat. And if you're unfamiliar, it's simply iPhone texting. It's using that Apple iMessaging ecosystem. And if you're thinking about SMS and in the same breath aren't also thinking about Apple Messaging for Business, you've misunderstood what SMS actually is and what text messaging actually is. So definitely look into that. All of these channels were sort of designed with AI in mind and being able to deploy a bot. So I think that's a nice segue into what we were just talking about, is you don't have to be afraid of turning these channels on and then overwhelming your contact center with volume. There's a very smart way to do it while deploying AI to be able to have this be a win-win all the way around.
Yeah, it's really interesting as we've moved into a digital economy. So much of how people transact and how people communicate is done in a mobile sense. So, if you're going to go to a hotel, you're not waiting to get to the hotel and check in and have a conversation about something that you might be wanting to do there, you may actually be doing that in the back of the Uber on the way to the hotel. This is kind of the frictionless environment that we're moving into. And if your technology does not meet people on those various different mediums, you're going to lose out, and people are going to select other companies, other brands. And we know that ultimately today, right now, it takes one bad experience for a person to completely drop maybe a lifetime of doing business with that company, just because they don't feel that company is in touch anymore, or they don't value their business anymore, or they created potentially a problem in their schedule or in their flow of the day that they can't have that anymore. So they move to another provider that will meet them where they need to be. And it's just that tolerance is so little now that I don't understand sometimes why there is a reticence to want to bridge beyond the email, bridge beyond the simple chat, bridge beyond the voice, and to get into all these other channels. I mean, right away, you will probably maybe open up a new audience and maybe serve an audience that's underserved, and you had no idea that they were starting to fall away.
So it's a very good philosophical question that you raised, Frank. How good are humans at change? Absolutely. I think you might be a little bit biased. I'm sure I'm biased as well.
Yes,
But I think change is always, there's always some fear associated with that.
there is.
Whether it comes to digital channels or I think the best way to overcome that fear is simply education. Is it going to take a little extra time? Absolutely. But is it worth it in the end? 100%. So if you're afraid of your job, or, of technology replacing your job, the better educated you become, the more you learn about these tools and realize that if you master them, you'll be in pole position to take advantage of them, not be taken advantage by. And I think that's so important in everything that we do. Don't be afraid. Like, go get it. It's there to help you if you make it so.
You told that story about your friend. I'll tell a story. One time I was out on a business visit to a client, and as I got ready in the hotel, I was putting on my shoes. I was sitting on the bed, and I'm watching the television and a morning business show, and they're speaking to somebody who was driving a lot of innovation in the healthcare environment, and they were providing a lot of telehealth, and they were interviewing this leader of this company, and he was just a very direct individual. And they said, well, what about your competition? And he said, my competition is dead and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
It was like being punched in the face with a reality of part of our ability to be sustainable, our ability to survive, is our ability to adapt. And so sometimes you have to be proactive. You don't need to be bleeding edge. You certainly can be leading edge. And I think that right now there is maybe a little bit of an opportunity to win by being an early adopter around these tech.
100%. Disruption always creates opportunity.
So let's talk about investing in AI. How do we get there? Because ultimately this becomes a business decision. And ultimately, with the growing, prominence of AI in contact centers, businesses are facing this decision that we're talking about. What investment direction should they take towards AI? I mean, that's a kind of a big question. And typically AI is measured rate type of solution, right? It's an operational cost, but it's measured rate. So the more you use it, which should be a good thing, the more you pay. And it's also not a light switch. You talked about that earlier. When it comes to implementation, you just don't say, we now have AI. It takes inspection of user stories and a tight go-to-market strategy. And then that's going to involve professional services. So now people march in, dollars go up. That's going to be a large capital cost up front. So you need to really be able to measure that scope. So either way, it doesn't matter. The ROI is solid. The reasons to adopt are still huge. So where does RingCentral lean, maybe in terms of recommending where the smart money is placed on early investment in AI?
Conversational AI, for almost every company out there, I'm hard pressed to think of an example where it couldn't be helpful, is an easy win. So typically speaking, the cost of a call or even the cost of a chat now is usually a couple of bucks, if not more, to speak with a live person. And the cost of an interaction with AI is, in that 20 to 40 cent range, depending on your volume.
That's right.
So just back of the napkin math, you're looking at a 5 to 10x cost savings for every interaction that we can let the AI assist with. And so even with, some decent sized professional services costs that you alluded to, we're seeing ROI in the first year and then exponential growth in the ROI for years 2, 3, and beyond. And so that's almost always the first step, is identifying those use cases, identifying the conversations that really a human doesn't need to be having, even if it's just basic FAQs. How do we offload that volume? And I think once we show a customer, hey, look, here's the results you're getting, then they're open to more of the complex interactions that can further feed that equation. And that's what we're looking for. The second big bucket is that agent churn. How do we solve that? What's really driving agent churn? What's causing difficulty there? And then what does your agent ramp time look at? That's really part of the same equation on that side. And the technology that we can bring to bear, we're seeing things like a reduction of ramp time by 75%. So as you're reflecting on your own call center and what that would do for your team to get an agent from 0 to hero in a fourth of the time, again, a no-brainer. So
No-brainer.
The more conversations we have along those lines, the better it goes, the more comfortable people feel.
I also have a sense that, most contact center managers or operational people have a true sense really of where the problems are. You and I were on a conversation just recently with a contact center leader, super smart person. She was asking like, where do I start? We asked a couple of simple questions, and literally within 60 seconds, she dropped 3 pain points, really well articulated, because she knew where the pain was. Contact center leaders are super in tune with their businesses, and they know where the pain is, and we just need to meet them there.
Yeah, I'd agree. And also too, this is going to be an ongoing thing. This isn't a, hey, I bought AI, my job is done, right? This is going to be a fundamental shift in the way that we do business. So
Yes.
Staying up on top of it, continuing to work with partners like RingCentral to stay educated, continue to optimize, month over month, year over year. That's going to be just part of the job from now on. So the sooner you start embracing that, the faster and easier this will go for you.
RingCentral's position inside the marketplace from a contact center perspective, RingCentral bringing frameworks and technology and tools to address this in a big way. How do you want to kind of summarize that from the RingCentral perspective?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing that I want to leave you with is really where the conversation started, which is regardless of where you choose to make your investment, which products and solutions you bring on, always look through this through the customer lens. Am I creating a better customer experience? And the same side of that coin is, am I creating a better agent experience? And as long as you have that framework in mind, I think you'll make the right decisions on which solutions you bring into the mix. So that's the biggest point. At the end of the day, happy customers equals longer term customers equals them telling their friends about you, which equals more customers, more revenue, more profit, right? That's what we're in business for. Don't ever lose sight of that. There's no cost savings that is going to offset losing customers on the back end. Like that just won't happen for you. The second thing is, again, AI is now a broad term. Get the education necessary, talk with folks like, the folks on my team, and really understand the different components to it and where it can be of most service to you. And we're happy to take the time to do that. That's what we're doing all day, every day with our folks. So that's the second big piece, is that educational part. And then I think third is don't be afraid. Take the first step. Trial and error is great. Know that it's going to be a continuous process, and the sooner you get started, the faster you'll learn, the better you'll do. And that's the critical piece.
Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for being such a great partner, and looking forward to some future episodes here where we unpack some of the specific technologies within inside of the RingCentral stack.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. My pleasure, and happy to do it.
And there you have it. RingCentral does have an answer to self-service and AI. And to be honest, it's well thought out with great technology to bring it to life to boot. At Arroyo 360, we work with clients on self-service and AI on the daily, and have found RingCentral to be a fully responsible and collaborative partner. That's really what you need, is people that really actually care about what they're doing and they're good at what they do. Everybody working together on the job to be done is what you actually need to be successful. With AI and self-service in particular, it needs to be more than just checking a box. It needs to be putting yourself really in right relationship with everyone that you serve. That's your customers, that's your people, and to improve the sustainability of your business. All right. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. And please remember to like and subscribe down below. And remember, folks, if you want to be successful, let's go get it.